It is 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 29th. Calling the special city council meeting in for tax classification hearing to order. Excuse me, the Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Councilor at-Large Linda Morad. Excuse me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Morad. The clerk is going to read the items, but if I can get a motion to take items 1, 2, and 3 together, receive and place on file. Made by Councilor Gomes, second by Councilor Winterson. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. The clerk will read.
Mr. President, item 1 is communication from Council President Lopes to City Clerk, Clerk of the City Council Dennis W. Farias, calling a special meeting of the City Council for Wednesday, November 29th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers of City Hall to hold a hearing on tax classification for FY 2018. Item number 2 is a legal ad published on Wednesday, November 15th, 2017 in the New Bedford Standard Times, giving notice of tax classification hearing for FY 18 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers of City Hall. And item 3, Mr. President, is a communication from the Board of Assessors submitting informational packet to assist councilors in selection of a minimum residential factor for FY 2018.
Thank you. Receive and place on file. Made by Councilor Martins, second by Councilor Yu. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4 is in front of us. The clerk will read.
Mr. President, item 4 is an order adopting minimum residential factor for FY 18.
Motion to receive and place on file and adopt the order.
Made by Councilor Morad, second by Councilor Coelho. Roll call vote. I'm sorry, I apologize. We'll have open up to Carlos Amada to speak and give us an overview of the fiscal year 2018.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Marty Tredup, Chairman of the Board of the Assessors, and I'd like to thank President Lopes, City Council, Councilors-elect for inviting us here tonight to assist you in setting the tax rates. First, I'd like to clear up 1 or 2 items that seem to be out there in the field that shouldn't be. Number 1, assessors, can you hear me all right? Assessors do not have anything to do with raising taxes. We set value. You raise or lower the taxes, plain and simple. In addition, there's also been some word that we are not open to the public. I beg to differ. We have a very hard-working staff that serves the public on a daily basis, taking care of exemptions and abatement applications. Beyond that, just to give you an idea, last year we had only 271 overvalue applications. That's less than 1% of the total tax parcels. I think that's pretty good. I'd like to also acknowledge my fellow assessors, Peter Berthium and Kim Saunders, and in a moment, Carlos is going to be speaking to you and going over all the nuts and bolts. But I just wanted to clear up a couple of things there, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Tredup. Mr. Amada, the podium is yours.
Good evening, Council President Lopes and members of the New Bedford City Council. Thank you for inviting us to the annual classification hearing. My name is Carlos Amado. I am the administrative assistant to the Board of Assessors. This evening, you are entrusted with the task of selecting the minimum residential factor. Your selection will be used by the Department of Revenue to affirm city's tax rates for fiscal 2018. Fiscal 2018 is an interim year adjustment. As such, the values were adjusted based on the result of the sales analysis as required by the Department of Revenue. Our staff, as always, have worked diligently to ensure that the valuation of all properties in the city of New Bedford were done fairly, accurately, and equitably. All properties within the city of New Bedford have been valued in accordance with the state, general laws, and appraisal industry standards. As such, we have met the necessary requirements of the Department of Revenue. Thank you for your considerations, and I will be available to answer your question and assist you with any technical questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. And we have any questions for Mr. Amato? Councilor Winterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Carlos, how much growth have we had? Could you explain to the council as well as the viewers at home? Any new growth?
The growth this year was just over $2 million. The actual number in your packet on page 2 is $2,014,698. That's real estate and personal property.
Thank you. And if you could possibly split it up in regards to how much growth was in regards to residential and commercial? What was the differential?
Yes, I do have that information, actually. Okay, the growth from residential properties was $210,760. Growth from commercial and industrial properties was $391,177, and growth from personal property was $1,412,761, for a total of $2,014,698.
Thank you. Basically, the residential homeowners are involved in about roughly 79% of the revenue that's coming in regards to property taxes. Is that an accurate figure, roughly?
That's about right, yep.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Council. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Winterson. Anyone else, any questions for Mr. Amata? Council Moret on your first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Carlos, so did you say there was a reevaluation in 17, in 18?
No, this is an interim adjustment
Okay,
here.
so-
The revaluation was conducted last year.
I just want to make sure that I heard you correct, that's
Yeah.
all. And in 17, how many arm's length transactions were there? Do you know? Because you obviously couldn't use it.
Well, in 17, there were, I don't have the actual numbers. Would have been probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 900 arm's length transaction for all the properties.
And the values of the arm's length transactions in 15 and 16 versus 17, what was the percentage increase in 17?
I think in 17, we had about just over 4% increase.
So
in-
that's not reflected in the valuations that you're showing on the board tonight?
Tonight, there's a slight more increase. The overall valuation increased just over 6%.
In the numbers from 15 and 16?
From 15 to 16,
Okay,
yes.
so
The calendar
then-
year.
So in
Yep.
17, there'll be at least another 4%. Is that what you're telling me? There could be a 10% shift.
Well, it depends on what the calendar year 17 sales show once we start the analysis process, which won't happen until late spring next year.
In my professional job, I've seen in the last 6 or 7 months a large spike in value in residential properties. Commercials are still, they're rising, but not at the same rate. I guess the reason I'm asking this question is I'm concerned if this is a 6% increase in the values that you have today, I'm just trying to project for myself how much more would be a residential increase in the following year.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm asking you what you've seen for a percentage increase this year.
Well, that's why we're very diligent about doing the interim adjustment, because you're taking it pieces. Each year, you're increasing a small percentage as opposed to wait for the revaluation and
Yeah.
then try to grab it all at one time.
Yep.
So-
But then, and again, that's again why I'm asking you, I asked you first about the valuation. I want to be sure this 6% increase does not include the adjustments that you're seeing in 17 so far.
No, it does not, because the value is as of January 1st of 2017, so anything that happened after January 1st is not considered.
Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council Moret. Anyone else, any questions for Mr. Amata? Seeing none, we'll close that portion.
Mr. Chair? I'm sorry.
For the record, too, the actual breakdown on the percentages of residential versus commercial is just to make sure that we had the right number. It is correct that it is about 79% for residential.
Thank you, Mr. Armada. Seeing no additional questions?
Mr. President, I have a question for the chairman of the assessors, but I didn't want him to be up and down, so when it's appropriate.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, Council Moore, the floor is still yours.
So, Assessor Treadup?
Yes, Council.
You said in your comment that the members of the assessor's office saw how many requests for valuation abatements last year?
Less than 1%.
You need to pull that down. You're shorter than Carlos.
I didn't realize I was shorter than Carlos.
Less than 1%.
I play basketball, you know.
Yeah. You were the center, I'm sure.
I was at one time,
Yeah.
yes.
Less than 1%. How
Right.
many were granted?
I do not know that.
How many were appealed?
What do we have, about 20 appeals?
We have about 18 to 20 appeals.
18 to 20 appealed.
And how many was the total
Of the total
of requests for a value?
271, I believe. it was.
271 is what you said before.
Mhm.
Okay, great. And then the other question I have for you is, there are various ways that people can ask for abatements, some granted by the city, some granted by state agencies. What's the position of the assessors in making sure that people in the city are aware of their ability to ask for certain types of abatements?
Not abatements, exemptions.
I'm sorry, you're right. Yep.
The exemptions, they're all dictated by law. We put it on our website. Anybody that asks us, we notify them. Matter of fact, in my job, which is somewhat related to your job outside of the assessor's office, first thing I tell people when they're in abatement, when they're a veteran or something along that line, is make sure that you apply for your exemption. So we push those as much as we can.
But I'm just looking to see what type of proactive measures the assessors themselves do in making sure the community knows that those are available to them. Do you work with the accountants that are in the city to make sure that they're aware that the circuit breaker is available? I'm just looking to see how proactive the assessors are.
I would say that we do not work with the accountants. We do publicize it on our website, and we do whenever we're talking on the radio or any other place, and that will come out. But do I go to the accountants to do? No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
But I do
President.
know that they're aware of it because I've seen it in a lot of publications that the accountants are aware of it. And that's who
Yes.
they have to deal with. They
Yeah,
don't
and
deal
I
with the
know that the-
assessors on that.
I know that the council body constantly is telling constituents that we're talking with about the different types of exemptions they can apply for. And with the rates having gone up and the values having gone up so much over the last few years, there are many people on fixed incomes, as you know, that really need to take advantage of
Absolutely.
those things.
You know, taxes are totally unfair. The whole system should be scrapped and start over again. But how do you get the legislature to even attempt to do that? You just can't. I mean, I've been frustrated for years with people having to pay taxes more than they can. I pay more taxes than I feel that I should have to. But until somebody really takes the bull by the horns and says, we're going to change this, we're going to do away with this, we're going to correct that, you're not going to see any relief. The poor taxpayer and the homeowner and the business and everybody is just going to continue to be slammed.
Well, maybe the elected officials can work to make sure that they make that voice heard loud and clear.
Oh, I do when I vote and on my other soapboxes.
Thank you, Mr. Trotter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thank you, Council Morad. Seeing any other questions, Council Gomes on you first.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Trotter, these numbers here that I have are based on what comes out of the state, correct?
Yes. They come from us to the state and then back to us after they've reviewed them. Correct.
They go from us to the state and back to us.
Correct.
And they set these numbers.
They approve them, yes. Yep.
Do we set these numbers, or is this being set by the state? That's what I'm asking you.
I would say we set them. You're talking about you're looking at the
Residential, commercial
residential.
property.
Right. The performance sheet.
That's based on, those numbers are based on the minimum residential factor. It has to do with the shift between residential and commercial.
I'm aware of
And
that.
that's by the state.
That's by
That's from the state, yes.
And I've been saying this for years, we're governed somewhat by the state on this whole issue. This is not something that we exactly put together, that the state puts it together, and that's why we continue to see what we see as far as the increases coming down the pipe, even though we have a budget, which I'm well aware of.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clarification because I've had a
Absolutely
problem with it for a long time that, you know, every 2 years or whenever we do the evaluations throughout the city or whatever, these numbers are based on evaluations from how many years ago?
2015 and 16.
And 16. And that continues.
Correct.
But again, these numbers are generated by the state.
Sure. Under the ideal situation, Councilor, if the budget stayed the same from one year to the next, and your values went up, your taxes would stay the same because the rate would simply come down to offset it, provided the state reimbursed the same percentage, which they probably wouldn't, and we get the same revenue from our other sources.
Marty, in layman's terms,
Well, that's
I've said it here before. If I valued my house at $200,000 in 2017, and my tax bill came out to $16.50 per thousand, my house got valued the next year at $225,000. My tax bill came in at $16. Then they're not the exact numbers, but that's the way the number game is played here. Am I correct?
Well, when you say the game, that's the way that...
The game of the state and
Yeah.
how the numbers work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that. I've thought that has been somewhat detrimental to the people who own houses and whatever. While they see a value go up in their homes, they also see an increase in their taxes and never see anything
Absolutely.
go down. We can take that same scenario that I just spoke of in layman's terms and say my house was now valued at $175,000. What would my tax bill be? $18 and
Sure.
something
So you'd
cents.
probably still be at least the same.
Trying to get the people to
Yep.
understand what goes on here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Councilor
Thank
Gomes.
you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Councilor Martin's on your first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Treadup, I have a few questions, please. Mr. Treadup, thank you very much for that definition of an assessors. We appreciate what you and the board do each and every single day. Also appreciate what the staff do every single day. We know what they do and the minimal payments that they get from the city, so we appreciate that. But I do want to get back to the community engagement part, where 11 of us are extremely involved in the...
One question, Councilor. This is not a hearing between us and you. This is a rate-setting hearing. What I do...
Excuse me, the council president will determine that. Councilor Martins has a
President,
question.
I'm just asking a question, just like,
Yep.
I haven't even got to the question yet.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. Treadup, I just want to go back to the community engagement that's already been asked, just for the follow-up for our constituents. It's more for the constituents who are watching at home, more than me, who ask the questions every single day. 11 of us are extremely involved in the community, so we get these types of questions as well, just like I'm sure that you do as well. And I want to get back to the exemptions, because I know that you publicize it on the city website. That's correct, what you said earlier? Thank you. You also, I believe, some kind of release gets sent out, because it might be one time on WBSM or the Standard Times, which we all share on our social media as well. Is there any discussions between you and the board and Carlos as well to get the word out? And I say that because when we're out in the community and we're out at the neighborhood meetings, and we all attend our neighborhood meetings actively, we often get asked that they've missed the deadline, they didn't know about it, whether we use a social media tool, or whether we get a board of assessor or someone out to neighborhood meetings to explain the process, because a lot of them need some assistance as well too. Can you explain to me a little, or can you at least help for our constituents who are watching at home, maybe some of the improvements that we can do better next year to get out the word for them, or if there's anything differently that you think that would assist them?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that when we're requested to attend a neighborhood meeting, a representative does go and answers any questions that are pertinent. We probably can go on the radio a little bit more than we do, although with some of the stuff that I hear on the radio, I'm not sure that's going to benefit the public. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm very open to the public, as are my other two members.
So can we, yeah, all great. So can we get a commitment a little bit just to get the word out for when the applications are
Yes, and I
available?
would appreciate it if any counselor that gets a request, they just let us know so that we can talk to that person, because we don't get that many requests for exemptions other than those that we take care of. I mean, there's people in and out of the office every day. One of the reasons between you and I that we have our meetings in the daytime is because a lot of the people coming in are elderly, and I certainly don't want them coming downtown at night for a meeting.
Right.
To deal with us.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
yes.
You know that was coming next, so that's why you probably said that.
No,
So,
I didn't think anything was coming. I never know.
No, I appreciate it, and it's also, like I said, it's also good for all of us, and people are watching at home, the reasoning behind it.
Sure.
So, on your meetings that you're scheduled in the daytime, can you explain to me that why a little, and you just did, if that's the only explanation you have, that's fine, I'll take it, if you could just,
That's the
and if you could
basic
just repeat it.
explanation. And in addition, we deal with a lot of lawyers, and I think they're a lot more available during the daytime, because, you know, they're representing clients.
So, Mr. Chair, just my opinion and my input as well, just from my, I know we all serve the same constituents as well, too, and again, just for what we hear every day, just my thoughts that those types of meetings, in my opinion, all of you are elected officials, we're elected officials, all of us work full-time, you work, I believe, full-time, so does the board as well. But there's also a majority of the people that we represent that work multiple jobs every single day, and they would like the opportunity to come to a meeting. We get constituents that come into our meetings as well. They might not come all the time. They probably won't. They don't come a lot to our
Councilor
meetings as well.
I've given you a lot of leeway. Can we try to get to the, send the tax rate?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
just trying to get to the constituents, and it's good to hear from Mr. Tredup as well. Sure. Can you explain to me if we can see that in the future, adjusting, whether it be every day of your meetings or maybe doing that once a month to give an opportunity to the people who are working?
Be glad to look into it. I can tell you that it would add additional cost to the city, because we would have to pay somebody to be recording, and there would have to be somebody here at night.
It's fine. I mean, all our
Not that
meetings are
that's
recorded.
necessarily the
And this
top.
has to do with our tax rate, Mr. President, because the process of this all is only once a year, and we all want them to
I
understand.
understand. I gave you a good amount of leeway to Council Martins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll come back on the question when we have to set the tax rate. Mr. Tredup, thank you very much.
Yeah,
You're
welcome.
welcome, Council Martins. Is there anyone else on that question? Seeing none, we'll now take motions from the body as we're setting the residential factor.
Miss- The public hearing is still open.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. Morgan, anyone else to speak in favor or opposed? Sorry. Anyone like to speak in regards to the public hearing on the setting the tax rate? Seeing none, make a motion to close that portion of the public hearing.
So move.
Made by Council Coelho, second by Council Gomes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Apologize. Now we'll take motions from the body as it relates to setting the residential tax factor. Council Martins.
Are you taking recommendations,
I
Mr.
am.
President? Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to put on the table 175, and that is .816398.
Second.
Made by Council Martin, second by Council Coelho. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's one. Council Abreu? No, okay. Okay. All right, second it. Anyone else to establish a rate? Council Morad?
Yeah, I'll see where this goes, but I doubt it's going anywhere. I'll put the residential, the class rate of 174 with a minimum rate of .818846.
Made by Council Morad, second by Council Olivera. All's in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Any additional? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote on the highest to the lowest, starting with residential rate 174, tax rate, minimum resolution factor, .818846.
On the question.
On the question, Council Morad.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to make my comments for both votes on one item. To my colleagues, I made a recommendation for something that I don't think I can support tonight, but I wanted an opportunity to have a little bit of discussion regarding it. Picking the residential class of 1.74 basically provides the homeowner in the city of New Bedford with a tax rate of 1 cent lower than last year. However, it gives the business owners in the city of New Bedford a tax break of 58 cents per 1,000. And I put that forward because over the last couple of years, we had shifted away from the 175, giving the business owners in the city a little bit of a tax break. But in the last 2 years, we've come back to the 175 factor because tax values were going crazy and tax bills for residential owners were just out of control. And that's kind of why I can't support what I recommended tonight, because in speaking to Mr. Amato, I was purposely asking what he thinks may happen this year, and based on what I'm seeing doing financing of properties in the city, I'm concerned that the increase that we have this year is only going to be increased again next year because values are going up. And Councilor Gomes had that correct. When values go up, generally, your tax bill, when values go down, I'm sorry, generally your tax bill remains the same because we still have a basic amount of money that we have to fund every year. So if values go down, the tax rate goes up because you have to pay the bills. And if values go up, the tax rate goes down because you're getting that money based on the value that's increased. The problem with setting the tax rate in December is that really we're kind of late to the party. This money got spent when we approved the budget in June. And that's really when the discussion about setting the tax rate should happen, when you're spending the money in June. Because whatever we approved as a body here in June needs to be paid for, and that's what we're doing today. We're paying the bill for what we agreed to spend in June, well, what some of us agreed to spend in June. And I guess I'm concerned because last year, many of my colleagues who were also on this council back in June of last year, which was 16, Councilor Dunn is exempt from that, came to the tax rate meeting and voted no against the tax rate, to the point where we weren't going to set a tax rate last year until we took a recess and we finally hammered out something, and for the first time in my career, I voted yes for the tax rate. The body needs to be consistent. If the body's not voting for cutting the budget in June, then the body should not be voting against the tax rate that's being set in December. You basically agreed in June that you're going to spend this money. So now it's just a matter of how you're going to spread it between the businesses and the residential properties. So I'm hoping tonight that the folks that are with me in the council chamber, if you weren't voting for budget cuts in June, I hope you're voting for whatever the tax rate is tonight, because it's hypocritical not to do that. And I'll probably vote no this year like I've always voted, because I don't believe that what we're doing in the budget is appropriate for the city of New Bedford, so therefore I don't agree that we should be paying the bill this way. Now, back to my other comment about why I probably won't vote for the 1.74, even though I recommended it. I do agree that the business owners in the city probably need a break, but I, like the 10 other people that I serve with, have been hearing the people that live in this city cry this year, cry loudly about how much their tax bill went up last year. It was awful. In addition to that, because we had to, we voted for a sewer and water increase last year, because we got major projects with major EPA and DEP mandates that we have to pay for. And we have infrastructure in our water and sewer group that needs attention. So we voted to increase water and sewer bills. So it was a double whammy last year for the taxpayer. I'm hoping, and the homeowner, I'm hoping this year that this bill's going to hurt again. It's not that it's not going to hurt, it is. And in next year, with the values doing what they're doing in the market now, people are going to expect in December of 2018 that their tax bill's going to go up again. And it's a shame, because we have to figure out a way to give relief. There is no new development going on in this city. There is no new tax money coming in. When Mr. Amato told you what the increases were, he told you that the bulk of that increase, over $1 million in that increase, was in personal property, not in new real estate development in the city of New Bedford. You know, we as a body need to really seriously look at how we're encouraging people to come to the city of New Bedford and how we're encouraging development in our city, because the state's not going to give us extra money. We're going to need to figure out a way to make sure that we here in the city council find some type of relief for the taxpayer. And with that, I'll sit down and vote no on the 174, and I'm sure that so will everyone else. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Council Morad. Council Martin's on your first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I will actually be short. Council Morad took 80% of what I wanted to say, but I will add this specific statement that she missed, sort of, but she worded it in a different way. I will say this, that the budget process is always a very intense process in the council. Many of us review that budget line by line item. We ask our department heads questions, and we do a great job of trying to find out those answers to those questions to ensure that money is being spent correctly, and we make the recommendations that are needed to make the cuts. The one recommendation I would make, and I know that the Board of Assessors are very open to it, and we greatly appreciate that, there needs to be more discussions, as Council Moore has said, instead of once a year, possibly some quarterly meetings with the council next year, whoever the president may be, to start thinking of that. Because the council goes into a budget process, makes the recommendations for cuts, but we go in blindly. And when I say that, I mean, we go in and make the cuts, and we make hundreds of thousands of dollar cuts, sometimes millions of dollars of cuts, really not knowing how that affects our tax rate, and if we're really saving taxpayers' monies across the board. We're just making cuts, not knowing at all how it affects the city of New Bedford, whether it be on a service level or our tax rate. So those quarterly discussions should happen, and I know they're open to it, instead of once a year, and before our budget process, before your budget process next year, to ensure that when you get in there, you know exactly a roughly figure that would benefit the taxpayer in the long run to give them tax relief. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank
you, Council Martins. Council Winston on your first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make it very brief. Councilor Morad and Councilor Martins basically summed everything up that I really wanted to say. Just don't forget out there, 79% of the residential taxpayers, homeowners, are the ones who are contributing mostly to this, to the budget, the revenue that we have for our budget, I should say. We have elderly people, senior citizens, getting reverse mortgages. You know, they're being stretched, maxed out. The 174 here, that's a penny going down there. I'm going to be voting on 175. I can say that right now. That's going to be a 6-cent decrease, I should say. It's just, there's working families out there. Everyone's being stretched. I mean, I'm all for businesses to come in and try to attract them in a sense, but it's very difficult when we have situations such as the budgetary issues that we have. We also had a lot of deferred maintenance that we had going on that you know, we had to fix up. I wish it would have we would have done the majority of it, but not all of it at one time. Kind of looked at that a little bit differently. But bottom line is, we have to really the new incoming councilors here. I strongly suggest you to reach out to the department heads. And Councilor Morad, she'll always find something that can be sliced in every department, a little bit here, a little bit there. You as well, Mr. President, and my other colleagues as well here. So we need to look into things a little bit more in the future for the new councilors, so I hope they do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Winston. Anyone else on the question? Seeing none, roll call vote on adoption of Class 174, minimum residential factor, .818846. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Abreu.
No.
No. Councilor Carney.
No.
No. Councilor Coelho.
No.
No. Councilor Dunn.
No.
No. Councilor Gomes.
No.
No. Councilor Lopes.
No.
No. Councilor Martins.
No.
No. Councilor Morad.
No.
No. Councilor Oliveira.
No.
No. Councilor Ribeiro.
No.
No. Councilor Winterson.
No.
No. Fails 0 to 11.
Fails 0 to 11. Next, minimum rate, Class 175, minimum residential factor, .816398. Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Abreu?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Carney?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Dunn?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Gomes?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Lopes?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Martins?
No.
No. Counselor Morad?
No.
No. Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Ribeiro?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Winterson? Yes. Passes 9-2.
Passes 9-2. Need a motion to waive Rule 40.
So moved.
Made by Counselor Gomes, second by Counselor Winterson. Waiving Rule 40.
Counselor Abreu? Yes. Counselor Carney?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Dunn?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Gomes?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Lopes?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Martins?
No.
No. Counselor Morad?
No.
No. Counselor Oliveira? Yes. Counselor Ribeiro?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Winterson? Yes.
Passes 9-2. Seeing no further business in front of us, a motion to adjourn is in order. Made by Counselor Oliveira, second by Counselor Abreu. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:36 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. President.